This is Fantology.
You may have heard of us.
All right, what's up, Spice Guild Navigators? This is Steven, your host with Fantology Podcast, and I have my lifelong friends, Jake and Josh, here with me to talk about Dune once again, but not the recent Dune movie. We're going way back 40 years to the 1984 Lynch movie. So, Jake, you made us promise that after our last review, if it got like so many views, it was like 100. Yeah, it just had to get 100 views. And if it got to that threshold, we would watch the old Dune movie and do a little bit of a comparison, review, discussion, what have you. So here we are.
Yeah. What did you guys think? Just like, did you enjoy watching it? Was it a chore? Would you ever watch it again?
I think yes to all of those.
It was a chore. Okay.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
But but I think I'd
You
watch it again too.
okay. What about you,
It's like
Steven? Or no, go ahead. Keep going, Josh.
it's maybe a chore, like taking care of houseplants is a chore. Do you necessarily look forward to it? Not always, but it like left me feeling something, you know?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm probably somewhere of a yes to all of those as well. It was a bit of a chore. Like I watched it in two sittings, wasn't able to, get the momentum to go all the way through. And I kind of fell asleep at one point, and like it was fine. Clearly, there are a lot of reasons. It's 40 years old, and it shows in a lot of ways.
And
But I
that's
don't.
crazy. It's 40 years old.
I mean, I don't think it was a bad movie. I just think it's been dated. Kind of like
Yeah.
the book, honestly. Like the book, first of all, I didn't really love the book. I didn't like hate it. I don't think it was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it's just been dated and it hasn't really kept up with the times as much. And the movie kind of the same, maybe in different ways.
Hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I think that that's largely true. I think Jake, um, we were talking, and one of the discussion points that we wanted to talk about was like, is there any chance this movie was like good or like legitimately like really good and not just like a meme that you might enjoy for like the sake of,
Yeah.
but
Like when it first came out, like
so
yeah.
yeah, I think somebody that would really like this movie would be somebody that was like incredibly into Dune, like the book, and wanted to see like a pretty faithful adaptation of the book. Because I think that that's what this is. It's been a while since I've read the book, but this seems like a much more like not necessarily shot for shot, but a much closer adaptation to the book than like
Mm.
the recent movies have been.
I think I don't know. I think this is closer, and I'm not an expert by any means in Dune lore at all, but I feel like this is closer to the book in some ways. It's closer to the book in ways that the latest Dune adaptation is not, but it's also more different than the book in ways that the new one isn't.
Mhm.
Like it's almost like the like in the new Dune, we're doing spoilers for all Dune
Yeah, we are.
adaptations,
Yep.
or at least all movie adaptations. They like clearly let you know Paul going through with this is a bad idea. This is like the wrong path.
Mhm.
Whereas this movie, there's nothing is seen wrong with it at all. It's like, oh yeah, we have this common enemy. Let's do this together.
Yeah, that's a good
And
point.
and in the
Yeah.
book, it's like more in the middle, where it's like, yeah, we got to do this, but also, wait, if I keep having these visions that something horrible is going to happen if I do this. Um, I feel like the 1980 whatever movie is kind of similar to the movie adaptation of Count of Monte Cristo, where like the main moral of the story is kind
Kind
of
of,
absent.
yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like because
Hmm.
in that movie, it's like I get all my revenge and then I live happily ever after. You know, whereas the whole point of
Right.
the book is this person is like wasting his time and life and ruining other people's lives to get this petty
Yeah,
revenge.
like you
But
spend more of your life getting the revenge than you spend in prison or whatever, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I think there's a little bit of that. And then the weirding modules is like a complete invention for the movie, which it replaced the weirding way, which was like this Bene Gesserit fighting technique that in the book, like Jessica teaches the Fremen, and that's like why they're so good as fighters. But that's absent from Denis Villeneuve's adaptation as well. So I don't know what is more faithful, leaving it out or adapting
Yeah.
it into sound-based uh fighting weapons.
Some words are or some sounds and make yeah,
Killing
it's super
brain.
super
Yeah.
weird. Yeah. Um yeah, but I do think though that like it spent more time. I don't know, because these movies are weird because the movies like again, it spent about half of its time like in the recent Denis Villeneuve movie spent about like half of the total runtime of both movies. It
Hmm.
kind of had a similar pacing, but I felt like in this we didn't get a lot of the focus on like Paul with the Fremen. It's just kind of
Yeah.
like, okay, he went to the Fremen and then like suddenly became their leader and then like suddenly um was now leading them to battle
Hmm.
against the against the Harkonnens. Whereas in the Dune movies, in the recent ones, um maybe a similar amount proportion of runtime was given to both of those things, but still felt like a bigger deal because there's just more runtime total that like you could
Yeah.
still go and like learn the Fremen ways
Right.
or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah, it
agree
is.
with both of those things. I think it was more like, for me, I think it was more like 60-40. And like the first new Dune movie had about 60% of the content from the 1984 movie and 40% of the content from the 1984 movie. I feel like the old movie was a little more heavy on like the first half of the story. And like you said, Josh, like the Fremen stuff was really sped up and it clearly needed more time to like really tell a very to really tell a believable story. I mean, it was believable, but they had to insert the princess talking throughout to kind of
Yeah.
like 2 years passed and Paul became the leader and he loved Cheney. And
Dude,
Which
yeah,
that kind of happens in the book, right?
I
Like
think
there is
so.
like some like
there's
time.
a lot of time passes in the book for sure,
Yeah.
and in the new movies, that's just kind of done away with. Like you get
Yeah.
to see a lot more on screen, but they don't do the time skip.
So I never really get mad at exposition, like exposition dumps or just exposition in general. Like I know a lot of people will say like, oh, X, Y, and Z book or movie had so much exposition that and like I understand why it annoys people, but like it just usually doesn't annoy me at all. But in this, it kind of annoyed me. Just like,
Really?
yeah,
What part?
but
The beginning or the halfway through point? Or both?
both. It was like let's stop everything and just do exposition. Whereas like normally, I don't know, like usually there's something else going on during exposition. Whereas this was like literally
Yeah.
it almost like an anime where it's like stop, zoom in on a character's face while we do like this exposition dump. And it just like got to me because it happened so often and not even and sometimes just for like a long period of time. So that was one thing I didn't love about this movie.
Yeah. Probably the best example of like info dumping done well is the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring with
Yeah.
Galadriel's voiceover
I
during
mean,
the battle. You know what
that's
I mean?
amazing.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
But
just done
I'm not
so
even
well.
saying like that's like 10 out of 10 exposition.
Yeah.
You don't even have to be 10 out of 10 for me to like not mind it. Like I can I don't know. We were talking about the recent like Mistborn, like the first half of the first Mistborn book. A lot of that book is exposition and it drives some people off. I didn't mind it at all, but
Kind of
not even
boring.
saying it's like good or whatever. It's just like it usually just doesn't bother me. It has to be like done really poorly for it to really bother me.
Hmm.
I feel like this was done pretty poorly.
I
Yeah.
thought the beginning of this Dune movie, the 1980 Dune movie, was fine, that exposition. And then, but in the middle, like it felt just kind of rushed. And I don't know, like
Yeah.
there's like, it's like
Yeah.
infamous for the editing, directorial like issues during production of like David Lynch never got the cut he wanted done. So I don't know if that was part of it or
Mm.
what, but it does kind of feel like, oh shoot, like we need to cut a bunch of runtime
Yeah.
out and
Felt
just
very rushed. Felt very rushed
yeah,
towards the end,
yeah,
which
uh,
is, I think, a big improvement with the new movies. They're able to tell
yeah.
a story that really feels like real to life, and you can follow it through. The pacing is great. I do think this, the old movies, they explain a little bit more. The old movie explains a little more. It's a little more clear as to
Hmm.
what's going on. Some of the motivations and the ending is different, like we said, but the story of the 1984 movie, I think, is right there, easier to follow than
Yeah.
the new movies. Not to say
Yeah.
that the new movies are bad for making it harder, but a difference is it's just a little more obvious what's going on.
It's less dialogue heavy and more like you're looking at visual cues to understand where the plot's going.
Right.
Whereas the book and the 1984 one is just jam-packed with dialogue, you know.
Mhm.
I do think the 1984 one is more faithful in the weirdness. I think
Yeah.
the Villeneuve adaptation like masterfully adapted the weird stuff into Dune from the book Dune into like being cool on screen,
Yeah.
whereas the 1984 one like took the weird stuff and then was like, oh, we're going even weirder. Like I
Yeah.
think
It
the
was very bizarro, right?
But
yeah,
Like
but
the
the
visuals of
80s,
the Harkonnens and
yeah,
yeah, they
the
were
skin,
bizarro like gremlin people.
yeah,
but
yeah. They're always
but
like
yeah.
staring at the screen all weird.
But I think that they were allowed to be partly because of things like Star Wars, that were coming around that time that
So I
also
think
leaned
this
into
came out
weirdness.
at the same time
Same
or
time.
after Return of the
Return of the
Jedi.
Jedi. Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
thinking too.
It would
But
have been
Star
a
Wars,
little bit after.
Yeah.
yeah, but Star Wars leaned into that weirdness as well. Not maybe not quite to the extent of Dune, but it has Jabba the Hutt and it has all the different alien species and it has all the different, like
Mhm.
it's pretty
Yeah.
weird. And so I feel like this was like taking Dune, saying it's kind of like, how everything is the next Game of Thrones, right? Like, okay, what's going to be the next Star Wars? And so somebody was like, maybe like how a lot of these have been like, okay, let's lean into like let's throw some extra sex in, or let's throw some extra like intense violence in. Like this was like, let's throw some extra weirdness in, you know, maybe missing
Yeah.
the point of like that's maybe not exactly the only reason why people love Star Wars, but um, you know,
Josh, you're
Yeah.
approaching blasphemy right now, saying Dune would be the next Star Wars when Star Wars
I
was a
know,
ripoff of
but
Dune.
that's
I'm
also
just I'm
I
just
know, but
saying.
it's kind of like maybe
Yeah.
like Rings
It's
of
ironic.
Power. Maybe like Rings of Power was supposed to be the next Game of
No.
Thrones.
I
You
think
know
you're
what I
right.
mean? Like I'm
I
not.
think
Yeah,
I think this Dune movie was very much so like, hey, Star Wars is so popular, we could like make a Dune movie that's at least as good as Star Wars. I think that was
because why wouldn't you be able to? Because like Star
because
Wars, the unproven thing was the story, whereas Dune's
yeah,
story was already proven, and so then
and
it's
a
yeah,
lot of like the story elements of Star Wars came from Dune. Like, you know what I
right,
mean? So like
yeah,
so it's like, hey, if they were able to do this as like, more of a maybe not knockoff, but like something that's inspired by it, like the original text is going to
Mm.
be even better, but
so
Yeah.
definitely
real
did
Was
not
it
succeed at that.
was it like popular in the day,
Not
or
at
has it
all.
it's always been just a cult thing?
Yeah, it's hard for us to tell now, but it came out after Return of the Jedi, and the special effects are like significantly worse than
Oh yeah. No,
Return
I
of the
mean,
Jedi.
you
I
have
don't
to,
know.
like, special effects. The whole time I'm watching, I'm like, okay, just take it for given that the special effects are going to be awful throughout.
But like for the time, it was like when it came out, people were like, man, this was poorly made.
So
Like,
I actually kind of enjoyed
Oof.
some of the shots, and I enjoyed the more like again, really some of the shots, but also some of the animatronic and like mechanical things that they would build. Um, I think that a lot of things were really rough. Like I didn't like any of the space shots. I don't
the
think.
space shots, like the rotoscoping they did with the blue screens
Yeah, the
was
road.
not
Oh, that
good
was
for the
so bad.
time.
Yeah,
It
like
was,
Paul's
yeah,
body floating in the air, like being
yeah.
some of the
What
like
does rotoscoping mean for those of us who
Um,
don't watch
it's
Corridor Crew very much?
yeah, come on.
it's like it's basically when you are like cutting an outline of something to have a
It's like
fake
a green
background.
screen. It's how you do it, like a
Yeah.
green screen kind of.
Green screen is
Okay.
a version of it. So like
Yeah.
there's lots of scenes where like when they're on the worm, you can tell the background is
Oh
like
yeah.
obviously fake, and like the lines around the people are like really
I
like,
think my favorite special effect. I'll leave out the shielding special effect because that's like a whole different category. But
oh, we have to talk about that though.
my favorite one was when Paul runs up to the worm, at
Yeah.
top speed, running faster than the worm is moving, and
Yeah.
climbs up. Yeah. Oh gosh.
It just like I think Kyle MacLachlan is a really good actor, especially after I just finished Fallout right before
Yeah.
recording
I
this.
just noticed. I just noticed that
Wait,
he's
is he
in
in Fallout?
Fallout. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's the dad.
Oh, he's the dad.
yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
goodness.
I
He's
was
also in
thinking
Twin Peaks, if you ever watched
Yeah,
because I
well,
that.
was
that's the only thing I can think of because I've seen Twin Peaks. I've
okay.
actually only seen the first season, but all I can think of him is in like
Yeah.
is his character in Twin Peaks, so it doesn't really help.
I
But
was watching Fallout and it was just weirdly bugging me that this guy looked familiar, and I
Yeah.
finally figured out where it was from. Yeah.
So I think he's a good actor, but like the scene when he's going on the worm, it just seems like so like nonchalant. Like, all right, I'll grab this, and then I'll grab this, and just like, whereas like, or maybe not nonchalant's the right word. It just didn't have the same amount of intensity as Timothy Chalamet attempting to ride the worm. But yeah. So yeah, the effects were bad for the time. The shielding
Yeah.
one is interesting because it looks like they were trying to do 3D animation. And if I am remembering correctly, it's not 3D. It's like hand drawn
yeah, I
like
just watched the
special
quarter.
effects. So
Mhm.
it wasn't like we want to do 3D, but this is the best 3D can do at the time. It was like a cognizant decision to have that be stylized that way. Like that was intentional.
Yeah, I watched the quarter. Yeah, I just watched the quarter crew video about this. So yeah,
What they
like
say.
literally, yeah, exactly what you said. Like literally, they would take each frame and draw the rectangles over the
And that's how special effects were
yeah,
done back then
right.
in
And I think
general.
that there's like some keyframing where they would move like
Yeah.
where they would move the boxes as they went. It's just crazy. Like
That someone was like, here's my idea for how the shield should look, and people were like, oh yeah, that's a
like
good idea.
it's exactly like it's mind-boggling. Like that, why not just draw a little hue around them? Like that would be so much easier and look so much better, you
the
know?
the worst part of it to me is you can't tell what's happening. Like the people within the shields and all the action within the shield is so obscured that you
Yeah.
can't even see it, and it just makes it so like it would be at least 10 times better if you could better see what's going on within the shield. But
Yeah, when Duncan's just going through the it's not the Arconans, right? The Emperor's troops,
the starter
right?
car,
Yeah,
yeah,
starter cart. Yeah. Yeah, that looks like it might have been some cool action, but I
you
don't really
you
know what
can see any
happened.
of it. Yeah, you just see this block moving around.
No, it was
Um,
even sorry, no, what fight was even worse than that fight though?
what
The fight at the end.
the fight at the end was pretty good.
No, it was bad. I
Was
hated
it?
it.
I think it
It
was
was
like the best fight in the movie.
yeah, I agree with Jake on this one.
No, I think that the ending, I think that the actual stab wound looks pretty cool, like through the neck. But they they
Shock
zoomed
saw.
in on what's his face on Fade doing a 180 whirl. Like
Oh
what?
yeah, yeah.
Like come on. It was like literally he's like, oh, let me do a little cool.
Do you know who the actor was for
Like
that?
what's his face? My mind's
Yeah,
blanking, but yeah,
It's Sting
Sting.
from the
Yeah,
police. Yeah,
yeah.
I didn't know it was Sting until watching it
yeah.
as well. Yeah, funny.
Yeah,
From the
he
police
does
and only murders in the building.
he does a little bit
Oh
better
yeah.
than Only Murders. But like he's so I don't know. Like it just felt like it honestly looked like two like 8-year-old kids saying, "Oh, let's do a fight." And
Yeah.
then like that's what they came up with. Like honestly, I think the two 8-year-old kids could have staged a better fight than that.
I thought it was pretty good.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, there was a lot of flair for sure, but it's Fade Routha, he's just
Yeah, they told him to bring the chaotic energy, and
yeah.
he brought it.
Dude, oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Okay, I'm just looking at movies that came out in 1984. The Temple of Doom came out in 1984.
Yeah.
Dang. And that has such, I don't know
There's not
about
as many
visual
effects of
effects,
that one,
but
but
yeah, but just like the visuals of that movie are so much better. You know what I
I
mean?
th I think the 1984 Dune movie has really good like matte painting shots or whatever, where it's
Yeah.
like zoomed out, and you can tell they put a lot of detail in the background and
Like the
everything.
shot
Like
of that's the other one I watched on Quarter Crew, the shot when they were looking at like the ships and everybody like right
yeah,
next to the ship. Yeah, that was really
yeah,
cool. Yeah.
that was cool. I think that was well done. It was more like the anything with motion. I will say though, one thing, and I don't know if this is book accurate or not, but one thing the 1984 movie does infinitely better than the 2020 version. I guess 2022, I think is when the first one came out. I don't remember. Lightning causing sandworms. Anytime the
Yeah.
sandworms are going around and
Oh
you have all
man.
this static electricity causing lightning, I'm like, man, that is such a cool idea. This giant monster is like traveling through sand so big, so fast that all this static electricity is causing its own like lightning bolts around itself. That's so cool. I
It's a
don't think
dual
anything
type ground electric Pokemon.
ground electric. Yes, yes, it's do we have to have one of those.
Are there? They're probably, I
Stunfisk.
mean, probably like later on.
Yeah.
I kind of tapped out of
Yeah.
memorizing all the Pokemon by that point.
Yeah,
Um,
that I think that alone makes this movie better than any of the Villeneuve adaptations, unfortunately. But could you
Hmm.
imagine with today's cinematography seeing lightning sandworms? How cool
Also,
that would
them
be.
riding the worms into battle at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, pretty sweet. Yeah.
I mean, you get some of that. I mean, do they ride the worms and
there are the worms and yeah.
Not in the
Dune Part
same.
2?
Is Paul on the worm? I
I
feel
don't
like
think
I think
Paul is.
there's some worm riding, but
There's
the
like a
worm
couple
riding
worms that go through.
seemed to be like the bulk of their strategy in
Yeah.
1984.
Yeah.
I was confused about the worms surrounding him when he drank the water of life. Actually, I was kind of confused on like everything surrounding the water of life in this movie.
Kind of similar in that in order to like have the sleeper be awakened, or like gain more prescience and like be able to see further is the analogy they use in the new one. Like you have to drink that in order to like unlock that part of your mind.
We spent a while discussing the whole water of life thing from Dune 2, and I think by the end I was like, yeah, they did it pretty well, where you have to kind of like figure out what exactly is going on, but there's enough clues baked in. I didn't think it was done super well in this movie because there wasn't
Mm.
like the whole backdrop of their troops are doing poorly. It's just all of a sudden Paul's like, I gotta drink the water of life. That's the only way to like get to the next level here.
It was much more like tied up in his visions, I feel like in this one, where it's just like, oh yeah, I could become like he kept saying like the sleeper must be awakened, and he's like, oh yeah, this is how I awaken the
Yeah.
sleeper.
But like
Uh,
what is
yeah.
that? I thought it
I
was
will-
well done in the new movie because Jessica was kind of pushing him into it, and there were these,
Yeah.
should I do it? Should I not? I'm getting these visions. Like it, yeah, infinitely better, I'm gonna say.
I think the other thing is that nothing really felt impactful in this movie in the way that like or like important, I guess. In the same way that like there are these moments in the recent Dune movies that you were just like on the edge of your seat or just like I don't know. Everything more things felt emotionally impactful and important and like a big event was happening. And maybe that's just because like I wasn't as into this movie or I wasn't watching it in IMAX or whatever. But like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't know. I
It
just,
did it did feel more like this tragic event happened, and now we're gonna watch the good guys like get geared up and take out the bad guys.
Right.
And like that's kind it was all like there was never as much like tension as to like is Paul going to be able to pull this off?
Hmm.
Maybe there would have been if like we didn't know this whole sandworm thing already. Maybe that would have been. And I think there
Yeah.
was still a little bit of that tension with the duel at the end, especially when he has like the poison blades at the side of his ribs. But I think other than those, yeah, it's pretty much just like, okay, then we did this and we got a little more like getting a little closer to our goal. Whereas there's more moments of like indecision and Villeneuve's, and then also like when they're taking out the spice harvesters, like that's intense. You don't know who's gonna live, who's gonna die in that scene, really.
Hmm.
Um,
They had this whole additional, well, they vastly expanded upon the whole thing with the Spice Guild navigators and the Emperor. Like that wasn't really a part of the new movies hardly at all.
yeah, the Spice Guild navigators, I don't think like they're mentioned in tech like in dialogue, but they're not central to the plot. Like
Yeah,
if I
but
remember right,
they're like incredibly powerful in this movie. They boss the Emperor
yeah,
around.
yeah, 'cause there's the CHOAM, which stands for I don't remember, but it's basically the company that owns space travel, and so it has like a monopoly on space travel. So they
Hmm.
are like their own um third party political power.
So they're
Um,
basically Elon Musk in 1,000 years.
maybe yeah. They're kind of like the what is it, the Dutch East Indies Trading Company or whatever from Pirates of the
Okay.
Caribbean and from real world history, I guess. But um,
From Earth.
From life.
from Earth. But yeah, and I like that I wish we would have had more of that because I think that adds a cool dimension to the politicking where the Emperor isn't just all about like, and I don't know how faithful this part of David Lynch's Dune was to the book, but it was nice to see that it wasn't just the Emperor getting jealous of the Atreides, which was part of it, but it was also getting pressure from this other like organization that he has to like appease.
Yeah. No, I do think it adds some good nuance.
Yeah. Also, the Spice Guild navigators themselves, they don't explain it all in the movie, but the fact that they are humans who have like consumed spice so much that it's basically transformed them into other beings. Which was cool to see them, but I don't know if that was apparent at all from the movie without having context from the book.
That was my guess. I was guessing that like slug thing was a
Yeah.
human that had reached, the top of the Spice Guild pyramid.
It didn't make, I don't know how it made sense that it would like shoot magic out of its mouth to bend time and space though. But that was a cool scene that if the effects were a little better, it could have been really memorable for a good
Or
reason.
or like a lot better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Um, what do you guys
you,
think about the Aaliyah differences?
This is, I
it's
kind
a
of liked the,
strange.
yeah,
Go.
either one is strange. I think either one is strange. I think I kind of liked the 1984 version a little bit better. And
Really?
Yeah.
recognize, yeah, kind of
Oh,
rec recognizing two things or a couple things. One, that they made the whole decision to speed up the time. And so I think that like
Yeah.
obviously like that is a huge factor. Two, it's gonna be weird no matter what, but I still don't know which is weirder, seeing a uh girl like a girl doing weird thing, like a little, 4 or
Like a
5 year old
child.
girl
Yeah.
child, like that was had a certain sense of weirdness, but also thinking about a fetus talking and like the beginning shot and then throughout the movie a fetus talking to people, that is also a really weird thought. And
I
so
think,
yeah,
yeah.
I think I
I
kind
think,
of like conceptually a child actor being weirding me out rather than the thought of a fetus communicating weirding me out. But maybe that's my own weird like preconceptions. So
I
also,
think,
yeah. I'll give it to you
Guys.
conceptually, like the idea on paper, the child is less weird than the fetus. However, I don't know how you get a 3 to 4 year old child to do, those actions in a way that is not very strange and odd. Like, I'm pretty sure that they sat down to make the new Dune movie and they're like,
We're not having a child actor.
I got nothing how to make
Yeah.
this look good, so we're not going to do it.
Yeah, I think the execution was done a lot better in the new Dune movies. Particularly because you don't see the fetus talk, you know. It's all just like through Jessica, right? Or Anya Taylor-Joy talking to Paul as like a, you know what I mean? You're not seeing this like fetus creature talking, and which would have been
So
weirder than having a child actor try to
right.
look
So why
intimidating.
why don't you just have like a child actor show like one shot of them and then just like have them hooded and robed and you just show them from like behind the rest of the time, you know?
Then it's like, why have the
Uh,
child actor? I think a big part of it was they didn't want. It's hard to get good acting like that out of someone of that age. And I don't think they wanted to repeat the mistake of that or have a "I'm a boy and my name is Anakin" problem on their hands
Uh-huh.
either.
Are you an angel?
Are you an angel? Yeah. Um,
I mean, that's on the level of the worst line of the movie is the little girl at the end going,
yeah.
"You're the Kizak's Haderach." Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Or when she's talking to the Baron and it's like totally dubbed over. It's like the
Yeah.
acting and the voice don't really line up super well.
Uh,
Um, I do like the fact that she killed the Baron more in which is in the book and the David Lynch version. I like that more. It does set up stuff for sequels. Um, so there's that element to it, but also I think it like they talk about how important Aaliyah is, and I think it gives her something to do more than
yeah.
just talking.
But I'm blinking. How does he die in the Dune 2 movie?
Paul kills him,
Oh, okay.
which is like makes sense, but I don't know. It seems like it's nice to like split up who's taking care of who.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
I'll say, I mean, they skipped the whole Harkonnen thing, which is in the, sorry, the Harkonnen ancestry thing, which is in the book, but was not in this
did
movie, right?
did they skip it? Did they
At,
skip it in David Lynch's?
I'm I'm like pretty sure I did like rewatch the end to see
I don't
if
remember.
that was part of it all. It wasn't at the end at all. Maybe there's like a throwaway line towards the middle
Hmm.
because in the book he discovers that from just some vision that's around the middle of the book. So it might have been in the movie, but it's certainly
Yeah,
not at the end like impactful for his decision because I think it's added in and it adds some weight to the whole water of life thing
yeah,
towards
in the
the
new
end of the new
movies.
movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. For whatever reason, I thought Lady Jessica or Aaliyah mentioned it in the David Lynch version, but I don't remember
It's very
exactly.
possible that I missed it, but it certainly was not an impactful thing for the plot
Yeah,
of the movie.
not a motivation in the same
Yeah.
way. Yeah,
And then the whole end where he brings the rain down and
which is
well,
like,
I guess we don't want to do spoilers for a book series that we love, but you
but that
know,
was a very unfaithful part of this adaptation and not
yeah,
explained. Just like,
it's
and
just kind
then
of
there was rain. I
yeah,
think,
it's like
yeah,
they decided we're not gonna be able to make any sequels. Let's just give it some kind of ending.
yeah,
Here's rain.
yeah. And that is another way where it feels like the Count of Monte Cristo movie to me, where it's like,
Yeah.
and everyone lived happily ever after. Like all the good guys got everything they needed.
Because it's totally opposite of well, I guess he does have in the visions, he talks about like being able to destroy spice in the Lynch movie. I'm pretty sure that
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah,
So I guess there's that, but it doesn't really talk about how that might be a problem. It's just kind
yeah,
of like, the Fremen are like happy because now their planet has been terraformed
yeah.
with rain and like no mention of any other, like you said, the Count of Monte Cristo problem.
Did they in the I think in the David Lynch version, the Fremen like Stilgar talks about how they've been conserving all this water to terraform the planet at some point, right? Is that in the Villeneuve version, or do they only talk about the water being sacred, like
I
burial
want to say,
water?
no, I want to say they talk about using it
I feel like it
because
was a
transforming Arrakis was a thing in the new movies.
yeah, I felt
I
like
don't
it
remember exactly how it was incorporated though.
I feel like that aspect was focused on a little more in David Lynch's, but maybe not. It's surprising how many scenes are kind of one to one though. Like the hunter seeker, Paul studying, like the shots of Caladan, it looked like they shot it at the same location, honestly.
The whole part where they go on their initial survey and
Yeah.
the worm comes and they rescue the workers and fly away, like that was all. I mean, obviously it looks a lot cooler in the new movie, but
Yeah.
yeah,
More
very
a
much
little more
similar.
action.
And a
Yeah.
lot of a lot of the visuals, like you guys were talking about the painted backdrops and everything, a lot of the visuals did kind of look similar as far
Yeah.
as at least stylistically, or
The
you know
still
even some
suits looked really
yeah
similar.
the shots of some of the bases and
Hmm.
their and like I guess just the desert. I mean, it's pretty easy to get the desert looking the same, but
It
the
had similar design
setups that they
language.
had in the desert,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So
Which
clearly
it
a lot of inspiration made its way through.
yeah. I do think I mean, for me particularly, like having kind of grown up with this movie, so there's bias there. But like I enjoyed watching it growing up, and like there was definitely an element of like this movie is crazy, nuts, and like ridiculous, but also has some cool ideas and it's fun and it has like a good storyline to it. So I think it has value on its own. I don't think it should be considered a complete flop, but I totally understand why people think it's too weird. I think it's like somewhere between like the prequel Star Wars trilogy, which has some good moments, but a lot of its value comes from its memeability. I think it's somewhere between that and the original trilogy of Star Wars, where it's just like, has like good moments as a movie. So
So you're saying it's better than the prequel trilogy of Star Wars?
I don't know if better. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, Return of the or Revenge of the Sith, I think is really well done. Out of the prequels. But like I think it's very similar in terms of like there's a lot of cheesiness, a lot of weirdness, and like memeing on the acting and the dialogue and things like that. But it's
Oh.
also like kind of cool and uh like you get into it, or I get into it. But
So I will say that I might show this one to Liam before I show him like the modern Dunes, just because I think it's less violent in a lot of ways.
yeah,
And
that
obviously I
knife
don't
through
have
the
a huge
mouth.
Yeah, man, Sting.
yeah,
Sting gets taken out.
that might be a little quick fast forward.
Quick
And then he
skip, yeah.
uses his sound thing and not only breaks the earth under him, but breaks Sting's body up.
Yeah, well, there wasn't as much cannibalism. So
That's true.
that's a win.
That's
Yeah.
true. But yeah, I do think it's more like this is one as a kid, especially watching it, like your cheesy radar is kind of lower anyways.
Oh, for
So
sure. For sure.
yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of weird 80s movies. I haven't seen a ton of them, but I've seen enough to
Yeah.
be able to, this kind of fits in there. I think it's weirder than most, if not like all of the 80s movies I've seen. It definitely takes it to another level, but it's not like total garbage. Like we're never gonna watch
Yeah.
it. I could see, like, I definitely understand the cult following and I understand the appeal. If I was a kid watching it, I could see myself, getting into it. Nowadays, 40 years, everything about the movie it has been improved upon in the later
Yeah.
version, except for the what did you say? The worm lightning? Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
thunder
worm
worms.
lightning. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
the
thunder
worm.
worms.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
not thunder, the lightning worms.
Yeah, I'm sure there's
Yeah,
thunder accompanying it as
yeah.
well.
Other
And
than that, you got a better version in every way already. So I don't really know if I probably wouldn't watch it again.
well, one other way that I do think David Lynch's version, like a specific scene that's better, is when Paul tells the Reverend Mother silence. I feel like the impact of that is like felt more in David Lynch's version, probably because you're always hearing people's thoughts. So you hear the Reverend Mother like talk to herself, like, he's so powerful, you know? And I think that's kind of glossed over in the Villeneuve movie. I would have liked to see that have a little more impact.
That was more like when he was in the when he went to the now I'm forgetting everything, but what everything's called. When he went south and to the Fremen and like went in the middle of them and like commanded all of them and kind of earned all of their loyalty after he drank the water of life. Do you know
No,
what I'm
it's
talking?
it's when he's like about to duel Federatha
No,
at the
no,
very end.
I know what you're talking about this one, but I feel like a similar moment of when you saw the impact of how powerful he became.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, was
yeah.
like I think you got more of that feeling, you know.
Mm.
But they do a one-to-one like he tells her silence in the new movie as well,
Yeah,
and she
I,
like has to be quiet. But yeah,
yeah. And then also, oh, geez, yeah. Anyway,
yeah. So if just for you guys, both your guys' takes, if just the Dune book existed, the Dune series of books existed, how into Dune would you have been? How many, like, you've read it once, would you read it again?
If just the book, no, I would
No,
I would be like, okay, I can see the
one and done.
appeal back 40, 50 years ago. I can see the influence it's had, but no.
Josh,
if I had a friend or relative championing it and wanting to talk to me about it, I'd probably read it. But otherwise, I'd probably be in the same boat as Steven. Like obviously, when I read it a couple of years ago, I didn't really feel compelled to keep reading
yeah,
it.
keep going.
Yeah.
Okay. If the book series existed and just the 1984 movie existed, how into Dune would you be? More so with the
Well,
movie, less so with
this is the question that that you posed that we might do a full episode on is if an
well,
adaptation can hurt anyway,
hurt an IP. Yeah,
can hurt an IP.
I guess
But I
yeah, I'm
feel
not
like
meaning to go there directly, but just
I
in general,
know,
like well, like
yeah.
would you be like more into Dune now? Like, oh, it's got this movie. I probably won't read the book again, but I'll watch this movie multiple times, or is it still about the same?
Again, it might be. I don't think I would personally sit down and watch it like I would be excited to watch a like Star Wars or like
Yeah,
um or
Indiana Jones.
Lord of the Rings or Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
Like I get excited about thinking about wanting to watch those
Mm.
again. But this one I could see again, like if Liam starts going through a sci-fi phase, I'd be excited to show him this movie potentially. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And now we are current day, current reality. All three, the book, the 1984, and the 2020 era of movies exist. How excited are you about Dune as a like an IP, a
I
series?
mean, honestly, a lot more. I think the new movies really leveled up my interest in the whole IP, the
Yeah.
story, the ideas, and everything. I think it made a cool but weird and kind of somewhat hard to approach series into something that is mainstream and has a lot of cool ideas that I now have gotten more into. And I think the way that they've presented and made it more ambiguous and really kind of like leaned into more of like, the morals of the story in interesting ways. I'm very excited for the next movie. And if I could see myself reading more books now because the new movies exist.
Yeah.
And let's say, the new movie comes out, maybe I read Dune Messiah because I want to see what the similarities are.
You're about the same, Josh.
Yeah, I'm about the same. I
Yeah.
I could definitely see myself reading ahead when the next movie comes out for sure.
Yeah. Same. I think for me, I don't know, the 1984 movie, I think it's arguable whether that makes you more or less excited about Dune in general. But I really liked it, for what it is, warts and all. But I think what we've decided now is like we are currently on the golden path of Dune content. Like this is the like golden age.
Yes.
We are blessed to be existing in this timeline.
Yes. The Muad'Dib has arrived.
Yeah, he is leading us down the narrow path, as he says.
Yes. Well, I think that was a good summation question to end on, Jake. If you want to talk with us more, you can join our Discord. Links will be in the episode description. Let us know your feelings on Dune and where you're at now. If you're with us on the narrow path, or I don't know, maybe for some reason like you just love the old stuff and any new adaptation is bad. Some people do feel that way, oddly enough. Yeah. Cool. Well, thanks, guys.
Thanks.
See ya.
See you later.